Over lunch, Dad announced, "Your brother's taking your room. You can stay in the basement for now." Mom nodded. "It's only fair." I just smiled. They didn't realize my name was no longer on the utility accounts, and the basement would be the first place to go dark. Dad slammed his fork down so hard the sound cut through the air like glass. "Your brother's taking your room," he said, voice sharp and final. "You can stay in the basement for now." Mom didn't even look up from her plate. "It's only fair, Adam. You don't use it much anyway." I stared at the steam rising from my soup. My spoon was still halfway in the air when I realized everyone had already moved on, like my life had been reassigned without discussion. No one asked if I was okay. No one cared that I'd spent 3 years fixing that room, repainting, replacing the wiring, buying the furniture they now called extra. My brother, Mason, smirked. "You've got your gadgets downstairs, you'll survive." The table went quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge and Mom's quiet chewing. I didn't argue. Not this time. I just smiled, small and calm, the kind of smile that scares people when they don't understand what's behind it, because they didn't realize. My name was no longer on the utility accounts, and the basement, the one they pushed me into, would be the first place to go dark. My name's Adam Rains, 26, oldest son. The quiet one. The one who never fights back. They used to call me Reliable, then Useful, then Invisible. I work at a repair shop downtown, nothing fancy, but it pays the bills. Most of them. Actually, all of them, until last month when I started pulling my name off everything that had my signature. See, this house runs on my silence. The gas, water, lights, all of it carried my name. I signed those forms when Dad's credit was trashed. They forgot that. They forgot me. Sometimes I think they trained me to be quiet, taught me that speaking up means being ungrateful, but silence doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes silence is just waiting. And I've been waiting for a long time. Family members introduced. Mason, 22. The golden boy. A charm that could sell lies as truth. He never paid for anything, but somehow always got rewarded. He had the kind of confidence that came from never facing a consequence. Mom, Karen, emotional, always in denial. She cries when she's caught lying and then blames the tears on someone else's tone. She'll say, "You know I didn't mean it like that," while she's still meaning it exactly like that. Dad, Robert Rains, mid-50s, voice like thunder when he wants to remind you he's in charge. He calls it leadership. I call it control. The three of them. They talk about family values, Sunday dinners, keeping up appearances, but all I see are roles. Mason plays the success story. Mom plays the peacekeeper. Dad plays the provider. And me, I play the background noise that keeps their lights on. But tonight, when Dad said I'd be in the basement, I saw something flicker across Mom's face. Guilt. Tiny, quick. Like she knew this wasn't just about a room. Something was coming. The next morning, Mason's boxes were already stacked outside my door. He didn't knock, just barged in. Dad said to clear out your stuff. You can keep your computer downstairs. My computer? I asked quietly. Yeah, the one you bought with his money. He laughed. That line hit harder than I let show. Because I remembered exactly where that money came from. The refund check I handed Dad 2 years ago when he needed it for mortgage help. He never gave it back. Mom appeared in the hallway. "Adam, don't start. He's your brother. Be supportive." I looked at her. The way she avoided my eyes, the way her hands shook. She was hiding something. I didn't push. I just said, "Sure, he can have it." But inside, my thoughts were burning. I've seen this before. They've always played this game, and when Mason said, "Dad said you should pay for the moving truck since you're still staying here rent-free," I realized they weren't asking anymore. They were taking. By dinner, I caught Dad whispering something to Mom. All I heard was one sentence. He doesn't need to know about it. About what? By Thursday, every conversation turned into a jab. Mason bragged about his new room. Mom complained about bills. And Dad kept reminding me how family sacrifices are normal. That night, he said it again. You've been freeloading long enough, Adam. I set my fork down steady. I've been paying the bills, Dad. All of them. He glared. Watch your tone. Mom jumped in, nervous. Adam, let's not do this. No, I said, voice calm but sharp. Let's finally do this. Mason rolled his eyes. You're acting like a victim again. Something in me snapped, but quietly, like a thread breaking. I looked around the table, their familiar faces, their practiced lies. You know, I said, for a family that talks about loyalty, you're all really good at taking what isn't yours. The air froze. Dad's hand hit the table. Enough! I leaned back. Yeah, it is. That line, soft, calm, changed the room. Even Mason stopped smiling, because they could feel it. Something in me wasn't afraid anymore. I remember the first time I realized I didn't belong here. I was 16. Dad lost his job and Mom cried for weeks. I worked nights at a diner after school to help. When the bills came, Dad used my paycheck, every cent, and told me, family first. When I asked for money for my graduation trip, he said, you're selfish. We're struggling and you're thinking about vacations. I didn't go. A month later, Mason got a new gaming console for his birthday. That's when I learned my place. The fixer, the helper, the one who quietly saves everyone else. Years later, when Dad's car got repossessed, I co-signed a new one. He promised to take over payments in a month. He never did. I paid it off quietly. They forgot every sacrifice, every silent yes I gave when I should have said no. And now, looking at Mason taking my room, I realized they'd built this entire life on my obedience. But one day, silence runs out. It happened Friday night. Dad was on the phone in the garage. I overheard him. Yeah, just transfer the funds to Mason's account. Adam won't know. It's still under his name. My blood went cold. I checked the mail the next morning, and there it was. A letter from the bank. My name. A loan. $15,000. They'd used my credit again. When I confronted them, Mom gasped, Adam, it's just temporary. Mason needed it for his business. Business? I laughed. He works part-time at a car wash, Dad shouted. Don't disrespect your brother. And that's when I saw it. Mason looking at me like he'd already won. That smug smile that said, you'll forgive us like you always do. But not this time. I looked each of them in the eye. I knew, I said. I've known for weeks. I just wanted to see how far you'd go. Mom's face went pale. Dad's jaw clenched. Mason froze. Because now they realized the game wasn't theirs anymore. That night felt like the house itself was collapsing. Mom was crying in the kitchen. Mason was shouting about betrayal. Dad kept pacing, trying to call the bank before I could. I just stood there, watching, calm, detached. You think you're smart, Adam? Dad shouted. You'll regret crossing me. I finally spoke. I gave you all my silence, I said softly. Tonight, I give you the truth. They stopped. I removed my name from the accounts weeks ago. The utilities? The payments? They're yours now. Mom's voice cracked. What do you mean? I looked at Mason. Enjoy your new room. The lights go off tomorrow. And I walked out. Behind me, I heard Dad yelling my name. Not out of love, but fear. The silence that followed was the most peaceful sound I'd ever heard. I didn't take much when I left. Just my laptop, my tools, and a small box of photos I didn't have the heart to burn. I moved into a small one-room apartment near the shop. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No shouting, no guilt, no footsteps upstairs reminding me of everything I wasn't. A week later, Mom called. Adam, please. We don't have electricity or water. Your father's furious. Can you fix it? I paused. No, Mom, I already did. She started crying. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. They'll never see me the same again, I thought as I hung up. And I don't need them to. Months passed. The house went up for sale. Mason moved in with friends. Dad took a night job. I drove by once, not to gloat. just to see what silence looks like when it's deserved. The curtains were gone, the windows dark. For the first time, I didn't feel anger. I just felt light. I realized revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet, like peace reclaiming its place. I met new people, fixed cars, slept without hearing my name shouted down a hallway. And one night, as I sat by the window of my small apartment, I whispered to myself, for the first time, I don't carry their weight anymore. If you were in my place, would you forgive them or walk away forever? He pauses, eyes steady but full of ache. I used to think silence was weakness, but sometimes silence is survival, and walking away isn't running, it's reclaiming your peace. If this story hit something inside you, leave a comment. Tell me what you would have done, like if you've ever been the quiet one finally standing up. Subscribe if you believe that peace after betrayal is still possible. Share if someone you know needs to hear this. Because sometimes the loudest revenge is living free.